Globalization is not a monolithic force, but an evolving set of consequences. Some good, some bad, and some unintended. It is a new reality. A pleasant day to all of you. Today, we are going to discuss about disease and how globalization affects on the spread of diseases in the world. Together with my group, Panique, Lei Ann Saraga, yours truly, Sontat, Ericka May Pelobello, Devine Santiago, Xyridaceae Parreno, Blessie Sarador, and Jocel Santorio. So first, what is disease? According to Oxford Languages, a disease is a particular abnormal condition that negatively affects the structure or function of all part of an organism and that is not immediately due to an external injury. Diseases are often known to be medical conditions that are associated with specific signs and symptoms.
Globalization and disease. Etiology, the modern branch of science that deals with the causes of infectious disease, recognize 5 major modes of disease transmissions, which are airborne, waterborne, bloodborne, by direct contact, and through vectors, insects or other creatures that carry germs from one species to another. As humans began traveling overseas and across land, which are previously isolated, research suggests that diseases have been spread by all 5 transmission modes.
The dangerous threat of a global pandemic ranks higher than major terrorist attacks, even one involving weapon of mass destruction. The spread and control of infectious diseases such as AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, cholera, Middle East respiratory syndrome, Ebola, lymphatic filariasis, avian flu, medical disease, and swine flu have established themselves on the radar screen of policymakers throughout the world. Additionally, non-communicable diseases such as cancer, stroke, and diabetes are on the rise, and it is estimated that by 2030, they will be leading cause of death, disability in every region of the world. Despite the complex nature of globalization and continued arguments, there is still a clear need for better conceptual and empirical understanding of specific impacts of globalization. Humans, animals, and food are moving around the world more frequently and more easily than ever before. This goes the same true when carrying disease-causing agents with them. In today's globalized world, disease can spread quickly and is no longer contained to isolated geographical areas. While globalization increases the risk of the spread of infectious disease, it also facilitates more collaboration and better communication that will allow for a more comprehensive global effort toward controlling this disease.
At this point, let's tackle the topic towards borderless diseases. Borderless diseases refer to those infectious disease areas that exhibit considerable global mobility. These diseases have become much more common in recent years, but they are not new phenomenon. Diseases such as plague, malaria, tuberculosis, and sexually transmitted infections are some of the borderless diseases. These various types of diseases have become long-spread globally, and we should be aware of that for the reason that any of us could get affected with this disease if we may not possibly not protect our health. Now, let us talk about HIV or AIDS. HIV or AIDS spreads in various ways such as blood transfusion, but it spreads through sexual human contact. That is especially relevant in the context of this book, Whiteside 2012. The globalization of disease is a result of increasingly heightened global movement of people throughout much of the world. HIV or AIDS cannot be contracted through casual contact with people who have the disease. Thus, passengers on an international flight will not contact AIDS simply because they sit next to or converse with a fellow passenger with that disease. People who have the disease can travel great distances over a period of years without knowing they have it. Therefore, they have the ability of widely scattered locals. Those with HIV or AIDS have unprotected sexual contact with people in other countries. They are likely to transmit the disease on at least some of them. Similarly, those without the disease can travel to nations where HIV or AIDS is prevalent, contract it, and then bring it back to their home country. In either case, the disease moves from region to region, country to country, and ultimately globally carried by human vector.
Another example of borderless diseases is the flu. It is an infection of the nose, throat, and lungs, which are part of the respiratory system. It can cause mild to severe illness and at times can lead to death. Flu symptoms usually come unsuddenly. Spanish flu pandemic happened in 1918 and there are millions of people who got affected and most of them died. The World Bank estimates that a severe outbreak of influenza could cost the global economy as much as $3 trillion. Another example is the Ebola. It is a rare and deadly disease in people and non-human primates. The viruses that cause EBV are located mainly in sub-Saharan Africa. People can get EBV through direct contact with an infected animal or a sick or dead person infected with Ebola virus. Ebola viruses produces hemorrhagic fever, a condition that also can be brought about by other types of viruses, but Ebola produces one of the most lethal forms.
Now, let's move on the next borderless diseases, which are the tropical diseases. And one example of that is the chikungunya virus. It is a virus spread by mosquitoes and causes fever and debilitating joint and pain. It was first identified in Tanzania in 1952 by R.W. Ross. After its discovery, outbreaks of chikungunya typically occurred in Asia and Africa. Then it reached India and new regions like Americas and Europe. One of the scenarios that we can think for this virus to spread is that maybe tiger mosquitoes arrived in Italy about a decade ago from Albania in shipments of tires. Since then, the mosquito has spread throughout the southern Europe and even into Switzerland and France. Other tropical diseases becoming more common in Europe include worm infestations, food parasites, and fly-transmitted infectious diseases.
Globalization improves access to healthcare for individuals and nations that might not otherwise have it or be able to pay it. So, it simply shows that the range of globalization doesn't limit on such specific products but delivers a wide coverage within the nation and outside the nations. It also broadens human understanding and promotes international connection. This effect of globalization improves human understanding and knowledge. At the same time, it promotes connection with each nation. Transportation makes medicine and other medical tools to travel and transfer from one place to another. Through globalization, transportation makes accessible and easier to the people. The primary drawback of health globalization is the quick spread of diseases, while hunger and poverty are important global health determinants. Globalization also makes it possible for infectious diseases to spread quickly across the globe. Although increasing trade is certainly good for economies, it also leads to a globalization of health risks. Important examples of such risks include tobacco, alcohol, global epidemics of non-communicable diseases, and trade in health services. With this, we can conclude that globalization doesn't only bring goods and services into people, but also some of the communicable diseases or any epidemics.
As we indulge in the modern world, transportations and private vehicles are spreading and improving rapidly. There is an easy access of goods and people can travel smoothly. There is a huge possibility that infectious diseases can have an opportunity to increase among people and countries. That's why we as individuals must be aware of the different changes and improvements that is happening around the countries. Awareness is very important. Let's be more knowledgeable about our society. Because as we undergo progress, there is an advantages and disadvantages. So, be more responsible of what we are doing and choose to be safe and choose the goodness of everyone. Thank you for listening, and this ends our report.